we will try to see what's the perspective of social and mobile gaming. From my experience, because I'm a heavy user of smartphones and tablets and etc., I could say, and I would agree with Malcolm Bruce, saying that it's a total addiction. Every day, every hour, every minute, when I have time, I will open an application and start playing anything. So we have to discuss, in my opinion, two things. First of all, which will be the evolution of social and mobile gaming, and secondly, the addiction that, on one hand, helps the industry to make money and to raise its penetration, and on the other hand, it's a matter that it's a problem from which children and people should be protected, as Mr. Bruce described before. So let's start. It's Malcolm Bruce, co-founder, director of GIS. Mr. Panos Lambrakos, you heard him before, industry manager for Greece and Cyprus for Google Greece, and Mr. Pierre Tournier, consultant for Instinctive Partners. So, Mr. Tournier, first of all, social and mobile gaming is not the future, it's the present, right?
Yeah, very much so. Before actually we go into the detail of the discussion, I think it is essential to clarify exactly what we're talking about when we refer to social gaming. I would like to thank Malcolm for the presentation that he just made and the relevant point that he raised, but I believe that the presentation he made was very, very focused on one particular type of product. Social gaming covers a broad variety of products, and it is essential to differentiate those products from gambling, but we need to understand what we're talking about again. These games can be free to play or can be paid for. In many cases, the outcome of the game involves the skills of the players, and it may or may not have a monetary value reward. Okay, so it covers a very broad variety of games. And some of those games may look like gambling. They are called usually social casinos. And this is what Bruce's presentation was actually addressing. But there are many other games that do not look like gambling at all. And even though those games actually look like gambling, they are not gambling, and they must not be regulated as gambling. So that's the critical distinction that we have to make.
Yes, but could this addiction in a non-gambling game, could this addiction lead to gambling, a person to start playing with money?
I'm afraid that for the time being, there's no evidence. There's no research bringing the evidence that social casino leads to gambling. There may be a need for it, so let's start researching and looking into the data that are available. Before making any move towards regulation, let's look into the evidence, if there is any, and if there isn't, we should collect them. That said, we should not regulate before actually evidence is collected, and I would say that no regulation is better than bad regulation.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Lambrakos, which are the evidences?
In terms of?
In terms of, probably you won't have, or you don't want to tell us about qualitative data, but of quantitative data, continuing and keeping on your speech previously. Social and mobile gaming are in the first place now.
Okay. So
what do
when
you
you
want
hear
to say?
Google, when you hear Google, it's all about data. There, so I was expecting such kind of question. Now, to be honest, and social gaming, Google has taken a different path from Facebook regarding social gaming. Social gaming is not permitted to be advertised through Google platforms at all because it's not regulated. We're not sure how it's gonna, this product is going to develop. So now, in terms of data and evidence regarding social, we know in mobile that people, 70 or 80% of their time they spend it on apps, and social gaming is one of the two areas that are top in consumption. Any more specific question regarding?
Is Google ready to develop this kind of stuff?
In terms of allowing advertising for or social gaming?
On developing?
No, I don't think it's out of the scope of Google. I mean, yes, okay, so Google has multiple products. It's in hardware, it's in Google Glass, for example, driverless cars, etc. But I don't think this is a path. I'm not the CEO, I'm not senior director, and I'm not based in the US. But if we wanted to take this path, I think we would have done it 3 or 4 years ago. I don't think this will be.
So, Mr. Bruce, don't you think you're exaggerating a bit where there is no regulation?
Exaggeration? No, I don't think so. I mean, Pierre is right, however, that there's very little research out there. Although the Oxford Internet Institute, which is one of 2 major universities in the world who are actually looking at online issues, the other is over in the US at the Berkman Center. They have come up with an interesting piece of preliminary research which suggests that gaming for an hour a day is actually quite good for you, but any more than an hour a day is perhaps a bit more problematical, but they can't specify yet what the risks are. So they want to see a lot more research done into what the potential harms of gaming are, because nobody really understands that yet. So my instinctive and provocative reaction is based on what we know about gambling, and therefore I'm being precautionary in my approach towards gaming. There's also some quite interesting research from Australia where they looked at 2,000 gamblers who also use social games, and the gamblers who use social games are much more likely to be problem gamblers than they are recreational gamblers. So, but that's about all we know at the moment.
Mr. Tournier, could this, all this social and mobile gaming and gambling, could this be monitored adequately?
Monitored by the regulator?
Yep.
Well,
globally, I mean, you understand. With common rules.
That is a difficult call. The online gambling sector is been innovative the past 10 years, but is definitely not as innovative as the social gaming sector can be these days. You've got more and more products coming on the market, and this will necessarily affect the scope of the monitoring that those regulators will have to conduct. And if every day you have to update the list of games that you are required to monitor, this will become impossible for the regulators to do. So it comes down again to the definition of social gaming, to what we're talking about, and to the actual risk that we believe those games entail. But again, we need to determine the level of risk. And if you don't mind, I would like to ask Panos a question with regard.
Can I follow up on the answer?
Yep.
I think Malcolm, and then of course you can. Yeah,
feel free.
Yes, sorry, you go ahead.
No, I think everything can be monitored much better in online than offline. So, for example, the casinos in Vegas, we know that there are, the cameras, and all the data gets erased after 8 days. So, basically after 8 days, you don't really know who came in the casino, what kind of money they took, etc. In online, you have all this data back 3 or 4 years ago. So if the mechanism works well, you have the data, and of course it can be monitored much better in social, actual gambling, etc.
Are there any regulators in the room? No, good, so I'll say what I was going to say in that case. I think regulation is a waste of time, quite frankly, in social gaming and in online gambling. not a complete waste of time, but any attempt at keeping ahead of the innovations in the new products, forget it. They will not be able to keep pace, nor will the regulators be able to attract the right sort of people with the right background to be able to monitor these new developments and innovations. So a new approach to regulation in this whole area is required, I think, which is much more about outcomes, the desirable outcomes that you want in society, and less about telling operators what they must do in detail. So for example, if you don't want kids to be playing on sexy poker because they're 13-year-old boys and they think it's cool and gambling must therefore be cool, then you tell the companies, okay, you get on with it, you work out ways of keeping 13-year-olds off gambling apps on Facebook and give them a year to do it, and if they fail to do it, you make the tax regime hurt, is one possibility. There are many others at looking at performance outcomes rather than prescriptive command and control type regulation, which is not going to work here.
Question?
Yeah, Panos, you were saying that social gaming advertising is not allowed on Google, but I mean, Candy Crush cannot be advertised on Google? Angry Birds, they cannot be advertised either? Or is that social casino the one that may be posing problems?
Look,
because I'm pretty sure that if you look at Google, you will have the games of the likes of Farmville and...
Yes. So Candy Crush, I think, and look, I'm not a policy, because Google policies in each country differ. So it's different, for France and Greece, etc. In general, social, as I said before, yes, it's not permitted. I would say yes, that Angry Birds, of course, they can be advertised. It's the same kind of model, making money through advertising, taking the credits, taking money. But I can understand your point, but yes. Globally, we've taken this kind of decision, which does not permit.
And behind this approach, you don't think that there's an actual risk for those developers to hinder those developers, prevent those developers from actually creating those new products that will have to be advertised?
I mean, look, there's no... okay, so these products can be uploaded in the App Store or for Apple in the Apple Store. I mean, Google's not the only medium of advertising.
It's not. Absolutely, it's not.
So these products can be advertised and downloaded from other platforms and mediums.
I think it would be, I don't want to pick on Google, so I'll make this comment equally to Apple as well. I think it would be good to see some leadership in this whole area from these giant companies that we all rely on. I've got your products, everybody does. But if there was true leadership in how to protect players, how to protect customers, then I think the gambling companies and the social gaming companies would follow, because you are so respected, you are thought leaders in this space. But it seems to me that you're only just beginning to catch up with the idea of consumer protection. And that's unfortunate. Maybe that will change in the future and you will take up a more responsible leadership position, showing others how it should be done. I would love to see this. And I'm sorry, I'm not picking on Google necessarily.
Yeah.
Who?
You talked about consumer protection. What is it that we're protecting the consumer from? In gambling, there are clearly issues around addiction, which are well known. There's also the issue about whether the games are fair and represented in the way that they should be. And then we're also protecting the consumer from other players so that they're not, fraudulent, etc., etc. So when it comes to social gaming, where their reward is non-monetary, what is the protection that we're seeking?
Yeah. protection probably isn't quite the right word, Sue, because it sounds very paternalistic. It sounds like something that the company ought to be doing, a nice blanket to make you feel better and keep you safe. But actually, it's much more about giving people the tools so that they can choose the boundaries that they need in order to play well. So you were talking about, playing all hours. If you could set as part of your app the means that you could only play for an hour a day, for example, then that would be a protection measure which is available as an option. Not everybody would want it. I mean, I'm hopeless at managing my time online, so it might be useful to me. But maybe to you, you're much more self-disciplined and you wouldn't need this. The point is to have the options to control the amount of money or time that you spend. That's essentially what I'm talking about. Yeah.
To add something?
Yeah, I mean, that comes down again to the harm that we believe those games may cause to the consumer, and we need to assess them. We need proper research, we need a proper assessment, and I believe that as long as no harm is being evidenced, we should not regulate further. There is plenty of legislation out there that could potentially apply to those types of products. Plenty. Consumer rights, consumer directive, service directive, e-commerce directive. There's already plenty of protection to be implemented already. And also Malcolm added that we need the tools maybe to allow these consumers to protect themselves, actually to protect themselves from themselves, to be honest. And, but some of those tools are already available. Parental control is one of them, for instance. I do believe that if you don't want your kids to play on a certain type of game, to access a certain number of sites, you can easily do it. It's not that difficult. So maybe we should improve those tools, and we should not go as far as setting protections all over the place that would be enforced by a regulator.
Well, I want to ask a question as well. Hi there. And this has to do with a note from our friends at Rovio, who said initially that about 99% of free-to-play social and mobile gaming customers do not actually pay anything for gaming. The whole business model is built around that 1 to 2% of people who actually spend money on mobile and social gaming. And as the time goes by and the customer is kept playing, the likelihood, of course, grows that the player starts to spend some money. If that's the case, that about 99% of the people, or let's say even 95% of the people, don't spend any money, then how likely could it even be that they would ever start to pick up, under normal circumstances, such habits that they would actually go on a spending spree and become problem gamblers?
I'll pick up on that initially, Timu. I think you're quite right. We need to get this into perspective. So the percentage of people who could be harmed is actually quite small. And even when it comes to teenagers, I have got 3 teenagers, and they're pretty savvy. They know what they're doing. And when you look at teenage habits online, they're a lot more able to protect themselves than we think they are. But the difficulty is for the minority who do get harmed, it creates bad publicity. It creates negative PR for companies who are trying to grow products in this space, companies who are trying to get into it in the first place. So from a PR perspective, I think it's really important that we address these issues head on. You just got to look at the challenges that internet gambling faces in the US, where the risks are blown completely out of proportion by vested interests in the casino, the bricks and mortar casino industry, deliberately exaggerating what is actually a harm that exists only for a tiny number of people. And then you put it into a bigger global perspective, the number of people who are being harmed by gambling is diminishing year on year. It's actually come down over the past 20 years. But that won't address the concerns that are raised on Capitol Hill. It won't address the concerns that are raised in the European Parliament. So it's important to be doing something and stop those people who may be at risk, and I say maybe, from getting problems in the first place. And that means taking proactive steps on the part of companies who are working in this area to get those optional protections in place to alert parents as to what they should do to protect their kids. Those are the sorts of things that will answer the challenge that is coming from people who don't want this sector to succeed.
Just one remark, if I'm allowed. Getting harmed is a little bit complicated than being financially harmed. For instance, I recall, I don't know if it's still on Facebook, this the farm game, you know, farming, whatever. And I personally know more than 20 people who were literally waking up during the night to either plant or water strawberries. So that, if it is not regulated in any case, you know, it creates harm in other aspects. For employees, they're not able to work in the morning, so basically we have indirect loss, financial loss. For children, they're not studying because they're playing the farm or whatever. And I can go on and on and on and on and on. And I can also go on with this, my kids are playing the temple. So whenever they lose, they have two options. Either they need to buy a diamond, all right, so they apparently are not allowed to do that because I'm not going to allow them to pay with PayPal to buy a diamond. But they're given the chance, if they watch an advertising video, okay, to win some extra diamonds so they can keep going. So this puts them deliberately or not, in a gambling state of mind. So that's why I personally think that social gaming should be regulated, maybe not as severely as the gambling, but there must be a kind of regulation and a parental warning, because parents our age are not very much aware of the dangers. Probably our kids, to their kids, would be more, you know, educated towards internet. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
A question for me. Hi. How are your kids able to pay?
This is what I said. I said I'm not allowing them to pay, so they're getting a second choice, which is if they watch a 10 seconds video, they can earn some. But this video, basically directs them to download another game. Because I say that what you had, the game that you've asked if we know, I don't remember anyway, they say it is an option, or the Empire also, or whatever. I said, you watch this video, so you choose download, it's okay, or not, okay, you can just restart the game from where you stopped. And, you know, nobody wants to restart the game, so they want to go on from where they stopped. And then they ask the parents, Mom, please buy me diamonds. So they create a whole frustration. And for minors, this is first step to gambling. Personal opinion.
It's a real danger, you're quite right. There's a game which is available in America by a company called Ruby 7, which is called Cats and Dogs. Cats and Dogs is a slot machine type game. And I really don't think I want my daughter to be playing Cats and Dogs on a slot machine. Whether you address this through regulation, I'm not so sure. Whether you address it by good leadership practice on the part of the providers like Apple and Google, it might be more productive.
Maybe we could start with a disclaimer or something, or a warning, or...
Yeah, definitely.
I actually work for a social gaming company. We have a startup here. And you have to appreciate the fact that technology these days progresses very fast. And gaming itself is where desktop games or PlayStation games were 10 years ago. Do you think that we should regulate PlayStation games? Because they are very, very addictive. I know kids in China that actually died playing desktop games. this is tragic, I agree, but gaming is definitely a part of our lives. There is definitely learning to go on. There is many characteristics that provide added value. And I think that by associating the gambling industry and the gaming industry, it's a huge mistake. You are limiting opportunities in a country where there is a lot of talent, there is a lot of energy to go into gaming, there is a huge community, and by saying that we should regulate this market, you are limiting opportunities. I just wanted to say that in order to defend our position.
Any other questions or remarks? Okay, you want to add something? Thank you very much for attending this panel, and we'll go on with the last panel, the role of traditional gambling in the new Greek environment. Thank you, Mr. Bruce, Mr. Tournier, Mr. Lavrakos.